Hey, welcome to the channel. Today we're putting an exhaust on the 2024 Z06 Corvette. We're going to show you how to do it. We're going to give you some comparisons on sound as well. All right, so this is everything that comes in the box. We've kind of set it together on the floor. So you're going to have the actual, I'd say, exhaust itself. There's no muffler in it, so it's probably gonna look funny to you guys. This is one of the pipes that goes from the cats to the exhaust, and then that's the other side. You'll notice that they're different. One side is a 2-bolt flange, one side is a 3-bolt flange. It's exactly the same as the Stingray setup. And then of course we have the exhaust tips over here. One other thing I should add is you definitely need some simulators for the actuators on your factory exhaust. So basically you're gonna plug these in and make it think that those factory actuators are still in place. If you don't buy these, you will have a check engine light. Don't worry, you can drive the car, but you're gonna have a check engine light and may throw it into limp mode. So I'll try and link a couple of these in the description of the video too. We didn't order these with this exhaust because we already had a set, but make sure you order them. All right, the next step is to open the rear hood or trunk, if you will. Once you have it open, you're gonna remove the roof latch points, and these are T10 Torx bolts. So let me show you that. All right, you're gonna set this bad boy to the side. You're gonna pull the other side. Now, if you don't have a power tool with a T10 on it, you can run to the parts store and pick up a screwdriver style. I actually prefer this because you're not gonna put too much torque on it and strip the heads of the Torx bolts. So once you have those guys off, this carpet, you're actually going to pull it forward. So I like to grab it right here. You're gonna pull it out from underneath this rubber gasket. You're gonna pull it back, and then you're gonna expose this hatch here. Now you remove this hatch to get access to the cats and where they bolt to the factory catback exhaust. So with that said, you're gonna wanna remove some tension on the bottom of this carpet. So these are just kind of hand tight, these hooks for your cargo net. Don't lose those guys, because it looks really ugly without them. All right, so then you're gonna pull your carpet back, and I like to push it down right here underneath the latch point and then pull up where your cargo net hooks were. And then now you can access all of the T10 bolts. So you're gonna remove all of them, and then you'll be able to remove this hatch. So once you have all of those bolts removed, you can grab the hatch, pull it out, set it somewhere safe. And now you have access to your air box, and then this is your factory exhaust. Now this is a heat shield here, so I bend them up just so that I can see what I'm doing and I have a little bit more clearance. The driver's side of the car has a 2-bolt flange right there, and then the passenger side of the car has a 3-bolt flange, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's a 3-bolt flange there. So that kind of tells you how your exhaust goes. Now, just by eyeing this and seeing how it's set up now, as long as you're not removing the catalytic converters, then you should be okay to only have to pull this hatch to get to the exhaust to unbolt it. But, you know, don't have massive hands, and make sure you have tools and you can reach. If the factory exhaust is still on your Z06, you are gonna have to remove the rear bumper. I say that because the factory mufflers are massive on this car, and they sit in this area here. So we're gonna remove the rear bumper. In order to do that, you have to remove the rear wheels so that you can get up in here to access some of the bolts. So some of the bolts are inside the hood or the hatch area. I'll go over those in a second. However, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is get this puppy off the ground. If you've never lifted the car up, you are gonna need jack pucks. In the top right hand corner of your screen, I'll put a link to the how to lift your C8 or your C8 Z06 up off the ground. So click that link, watch that video, come back to this video if you need to, or watch it afterwards. However, you're gonna need the jack pucks, you're gonna need them in place, lift up the rear of the car, remove the rear wheels and tires. Now I'm using a special socket that has a silicone sleeve on it, so don't damage these wheels. Something you want to pay attention to when you do this is as you're removing the lug nuts, set them to the side in a common spot or a spot you know where, so you don't kick them all over the garage or lose them. But you want to make sure that you don't let the wheel just fall off the studs. You'll chip the paint off your 6-pot brake caliper, and you will potentially, if you have the carbon ceramic brakes, you will potentially shatter or crack the rotor. And the replacement on them, I'm not even going to say the price because it's going to change every year by the time you watch this video, but it's very, very expensive to replace those rotors. So just try and avoid that altogether. There are some attachments that you can thread on to eliminate a chance of you damaging things, but if you pull straight out, you should be golden. You shouldn't have an issue chipping up anything or damaging those rotors. So pull these off, set them to the side. It's a great opportunity, great time to clean your calipers and the inside of the wheels because they will be covered in brake dust. I'll move a couple on camera. All right, so since we're removing the whole rear bumper, inside the trunk area, you have all of these T10 bolts right here. You're gonna wanna go ahead and remove those, put them in a safe spot so you don't lose them. Once you have all those removed, do not pull on the bumper yet until you have the rest of the bolts removed down at the bottom of the bumper, because right now you're going to use this to hold it in place. You can leave a couple bolts in place if you're worried about it falling. I've done this enough times to know that there is a small shelf or a lip on the top of this bumper that'll keep it in place as long as you don't pull up and back on it. So remove those bolts. Once you've removed the top bolts on the rear bumper, there's a bolt that goes between the quarter panel and the rear bumper. Now I'm doing this backwards, but it's still lefty-loosey. You're going to remove that bolt from both sides of the car. If you have the factory mud flaps or even just the factory liners in, you're going to have to remove them. Again, more T10 bolts. Remove them carefully. Once they're removed out of place, you're going to pull from the bottom, you're going to pull out. Now there's one more bolt on the very bottom, and that is a 7mm bolt. Now these may look a little different than the ones on your car because we made these in another video and we put some steel mesh in there to catch rocks and debris. All right, now the inside liner behind there, you're gonna have another T10 bolt. Gonna remove that. And then you should be able to pull up and out like that. So pull that out just to make sure it's loose and you've removed all the bolts. However, we're going to go under the car and we're going to remove all of the Torx bolts that are holding the rear valence and the rear diffuser in place. So there's a couple of bolts underneath the back bumper that connect the rear diffuser to the rear bumper. So with that said, the bottom of the fender panel, those are 7mm bolts. You want to go ahead and remove those. And I know I'm laying under the car and somebody's going to say it in the comments. You're going to ask where the jack stands are. They are under the car. Again, I linked a video that shows you where to put those because safety first, right? So you're going to remove these 7mm bolts from both sides of the car. You remove the outer 7mm bolt already when you remove that mud flap or those rear mud vents. Mud vents? I don't know if that's the right term. But go ahead and remove those. Then you're going to remove the T10 bolts that connect the bumper to the diffuser. So then you're going to remove those bolts. It's going to be exactly the same on the other side. So anything I show you, just assume on this bumper as far as bolts go, it's going to be exactly the same. All right, so you're going to remove those. You get your 7mm, you got your T10s. Now there's 7mm bolts that run from this panel to the fiberglass panel that connects to the bumper. So you don't want to remove the bolts on the front of that panel that go to all your under trays. You don't have to do it. We're just going to unbolt where it connects to this fiberglass diffuser. All right, so you're going to remove the same bolts on the opposite side of the car. You got a couple of 7mm bolts. There's going to be 2 plastic clips down here. You're going to want to pull them out, then the clip comes out, and that's what it looks like. You have one there and you have one here. Once you've removed both of those, your diffuser should slide back. And what I do is I slide back and then I'll slide one side down, pull it from the bumper, and then I'll do the opposite side. You want to be very careful where you set this because it's fiberglass, and if somebody steps on it, it will break. So on the back of the car, you have your back bumper and you have your rear quarter panel. So up inside the fender well, you have a couple of bolts you need to disconnect. So there's a 7mm bolt here, a 7mm bolt there, and then all the way up there you have a stud with a 10mm nut on it. So if you have alignment issues on your rear bumper where it meets the quarter panel, it's because these bolts have been loosened and it hasn't been aligned properly, and then they were retightened. So if during this process you had a painfully obvious misalignment on your rear bumper and your rear quarter, when you tighten those bolts back up, that's how you fix it. So we're gonna remove these bolts real quick, and that should be it to get this bumper off. So let me pop your side off first. Okay, hold on to it.
Now there's 3 plastic clips on the back side of the bumper. You're going to want to disconnect all 3 of them before removing the bumper and setting it on the ground.
This one, same, yep. Okay, make sure there's no other harnesses. Very carefully take it that way. All right, so as you're moving the bumper, you have 3 things to unplug. You have your camera plug. It's important to note that once you pull the red clip back, you actually pull it towards the passenger side of the car. You have another harness further down on that passenger side, and then you have this one on the driver's side. So it's really important that as you're reinstalling it, because if you don't make it to the second half of the video, that you plug these in and you make sure they're exactly back where they were when you slide the bumper back on. If you slide the bumper back on with those not in the correct spot, it'll push on the painted surface and you'll get like a hump in the painted surface. There's like barely any clearance back here, and you will for sure ruin your paint or stretch the plastic on that rear bumper if you don't put them back where they're supposed to be. So once you have the rear bumper off, you need to loosen up these exhaust bolts on the driver's side. So you have 2 bolts there on the driver's side flange, and you have 3 bolts on the passenger side flange. Now this one's fairly difficult to see, however, they are there. So another important thing is to disconnect your the little actuators that open and close the exhaust flaps in the back. There's 2 of them. Go ahead and disconnect those bad boys. You might throw a check engine light or a code if you don't disconnect the battery. So if you don't have a code reader or the ability to clear those codes, go ahead and disconnect the battery. Leave the frunk open when you do that though, because you won't be able to get into it very easily without pulling a cable under the driver floorboard. So once you've disconnected those, you're going to remove the bolts on the exhaust hangers. You have these 13 millimeter or 1/2 inch bolts. There's 2 there. There's 2 on the passenger side. And then you're gonna have to push some stuff out of the way, but you have bolts on the hanger that goes just behind the fender well as well. So you're gonna remove those bolts as well. Once you've removed the flange bolts and you've removed all these exhaust hangers, you can slide the stock exhaust down and out of the way. Just be very careful that you don't rip or pull or tear on anything if you've forgotten to disconnect something. So take your time on it. All right, so on the passenger side, we've gotten the top 2 nuts off. Now there's a third one down below. Now you kind of have to be a contortionist to get down there. Throw a ratcheting wrench or a ratchet on there somehow. So you might try and reach up through the passenger rear fender well to get to it. It's just as difficult. So you'll see this part kind of sucks. Oh, it's already loose. Oh my God, that's magical. What a good feeling. It only took 2 dudes holding hands through the ass end of a Z06 to do it. Sorry. All right, so once you've unbolted the exhaust and you've disconnected the actuators, you're gonna kind of wiggle her out. You're gonna maneuver the flanges around all the heat shields. Then you're gonna slowly slide out. Yeah, there you go. You got the factory exhaust off. It's pretty heavy. There you go. All right, so before you install the exhaust, you need to plug in the modules, and these modules basically trick the ECU into thinking that the actuators are still in place. So what I like to do is plug them in until you get a nice satisfying click, and then I take some electrical tape and I tape over the connections. That way you don't have to worry about water getting down in there or vibration breaking them loose. So then what I like to do is tuck them up on the side of the transmission like this, but not touching the transmission because it is going to get warm. And then I zip tie it into place right here. So they kind of hang out a little bit. They don't touch the transmission, which does get warm, but keeps it out of the path of the exhaust. And you know, you're already opening up this space with the new exhaust. You definitely don't want it to fall down or rub up against that exhaust in any way, shape, or form, because it can melt the wire loom. We have the driver's side donut gasket flange in place, 2-bolt, and then we have the passenger side 3-bolt. Now, we haven't tightened these clamps yet because we're probably going to have to telescope these out to meet the flanges on the back of the cats, but we will kind of slide it up into place, mock it up, go ahead and bolt the exhaust hangers in place. We did pull these off the stock exhaust. We're putting them on exactly how they were, but we're going to use these to hold it in place while we get the flanges all lined up. I'm gonna need those in a second. I mean, you can even start them by hand when I push these up.
So you're gonna install the new exhaust the way you remove the old exhaust. You're gonna bolt everything back in place and give her a start to make sure there's no exhaust leaks.
You got to remove the faux exhaust tips from the bumper. It's a 7mm bolt. Put Those 4 guys pop right out. You just leave them out.